Hello, welcome back to Let's Play Space Quest 6, The Spinal Frontier by Sierra Online. We left off having just attended Stellar Santiago's funeral. She was apparently killed in action, rescuing Roger from Sharpay, quite a troll on the planet Delta Berxilon 5. Delta Burke is an American actress. I believe she was in Touched by an Angel, among other things. But if you're racking your brain trying to figure out where Stellar Santiago came from, you're not the only one. She was new for this game. We've actually never met her before, and yet Roger seems to have quite an attraction to her, quite an attachment. So I think we're going to go back to Roger's quarters at this point. And once again, we see our compost flashing with a new message.
Wow, a message for me. I must be getting popular.
Roger, help me. I only have a moment. They faked.
Stellar, what happened? The picture's gone. You're alive?
Well, this changes everything. If they faked her death, then we need to go tell the captain. I'm sure he'll be more than accommodating. And this is the bridge of the Deepship 86. With Commander Kielbasa being a large cat being. He's got quite a scratching post.
That's Commander Kielbasa's command center. No, wait. It's his scratching post. No, it's his command center. Scratching post. Wait, kids, don't fight. It's both.
If you look closely, there's a Super Nintendo controller right in front of the captain. If we would come back here, he's not sitting there.
Commander Kielbasa, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I've just received a distress message on my compost. And it was from Stellar.
Wilco, have you been whiffing cleaning fluid again?
I'm absolutely as sane as I've ever been. She's being held on Delta Berxilon by Sharpay.
Wilco, do you realize how irrational that sounds? We buried Stellar. You were there. Maybe you need a rest. Take a couple of hours off.
Sir.
Wilco, we have our orders from StarCon and we'll be carrying them out. Drop it, Janitor. Leave the bridge now, Wilco. I've made my decision.
I think we can keep arguing with him, but he's just going to get mad.
Janitor Wilco, you must have something to clean up somewhere. Make yourself scarce. We're very busy up here.
He's the ship's engineer. You drool. You start to say something and then you That's the communication officer. That's Dorf, the ship's chief of security.
Okay, so now we need to do some research. Commander Kielbasa is not particularly cooperative here, so we're going to go back down to Roger's quarters. And we're going to play with the compost for it. So there may be so this video may be mostly reading the entity databases. Right, we can't do anything with that anymore. Where we could, still got the data card. We forgot the name. Let's see if any of these match up with our description of our attackers from back on Polysorbate. The Andromedan Decapus is extinct. See the Heronian tentacular slime sucker. The Andromedans are repugnant creatures known for their mohawk dews and their well-developed prehensile snouts, with which they can pick up small objects, give themselves neck rubs, and unleash projectile mucosa at enemies. The most famous Andromedans are the two guys who rose above their humble Andromedan beginnings to become two of the most popular and successful game designers in the galaxy. They were once kidnapped and pressed into service by the notorious Scumsoft Corporation, but were later rescued by an unidentified worker. Most Andromedans prefer flavored foreign coffees such as hazelnuts, mocha mistake, and vanilla cottage cheese. The Big Dealers, primary civilization of the planet Mega Big Deal, and this is in the Sector B subcluster, see Coronian color map. The bicranial crud snorter. Imagine a crud snorter, only with a bifurcated cranium. Bicranial crud snorters are limber, simian creatures with frontal lobes the size of Telosian binary cassavas. Okay, these comparisons are doing nothing because yeah. One would assume this makes them smarter than the average simian. One would be very wrong. Bicranial crud snorters prove the old adage, it's not how big your brain is, it's what you do with it. Just like their monocranial cousins, they spend most of their time snorting crud and then hacking it out again, in extended coughing fits that often last up to 12 hours. While they're not gagging and choking, bicranial crud snorters enjoy swimming, cycling jazz, and eating gibberellian dust mites. Bjorn, a race of half-humanoid, half-kitchen appliance creatures, are the scourge of the known universe. Bjorns seek out civilizations in order to assimilate them. The collected knowledge of each civilization is then applied to the task of creating newer, shinier kitchen appliances. This is how the Presto Hot Dogger and Daisy Steelamiel were invented. The leader of the Bjorn is a toaster called No Cuticles. Starcon has posted a reward for the deactivation of No Cuticles, who may be recognized by a socket just below the anterior crust control. The socket is typically used to connect him to various power sources in order to recharge him, and through him, the entire Bjorn collective. The great irony is that the Bjorn never spend any time in the kitchen, preferring to send out. They eat a peculiar mixture of batteries, nuts, bolts, and reprocessed organic sludge. That's a knock at the Borg, a primary antagonist from Star Trek The Next Generation, one of the more horrifying ones in the series. And I think we've seen one of those on Polysorbate. There's one wandering around there. And they're also featured in the demo of this game. The Bo Earthnick Boulder Beaver is an herbivore, recognizable for its powerful prehensile tail. Unlike the tails of most beavers, which are strong enough to fling mud, the boulder beaver can use his tail to bench about 340 pounds for 3 sets of 15 reps without even stopping for a fruit-flavored sports beverage. Hence, it can, in fact, create a dam out of boulders, or nearly any other material, including molten steel, lava, and stellar core flats. The beaver prefers to eat the sweet, spicy leaves of the creepy habanero eucalyptus line, and it gives us a replicator number, which doesn't work. The Uranon sea urchin is a pitiful little creature and doesn't really care who knows it. It cries constantly, which was only recently discovered since the creature lives underwater. It also refuses to play with the other Uranon sea urchins, however, some of its feelings are understandable. After all, it's just about the ugliest sucker on Uranon. Its spiny quills make romance a tedious and impractical affair, and its gonads are highly prized as sushi. This would make you cranky too. Estrosian sea slug. This is from Space Quest 4. The multi-tentacled sea slug is a large, menacing carnivore with a squid-like beak. Its spectacular adaptive abilities and matchless ferocity ensure that it can easily survive for extended periods underwater, on land, or in space. Due to its numerous disgusting habits and unrestrained lifestyle, the sea slug would not hold up for more than 5 minutes under the scrutiny of liberal media.
It wouldn't be...
Estrosian sea slugs eat all manner of creatures, particularly aquatic ones. Their favorite food of all, though, is the latex wave of Estros. That's it for this section, finally. If we look at 2, we see Golanian gutter rats. They're so slimy, sniveling, and nasty that they give a bad name to all other gutter rats. But of all their despicable habits, the worst is the fact that they're the lousiest bowlers in the galaxy, hence their name. Not only do they rarely break 100, they talk loud and cuss when other people are seriously trying to bowl. Their preferred diet is the bowling alley combo: french fries, burgers, hot dogs, and beer. Half animal, half vegetable, and half lousy mathematician, the green slime of xenon is a vague byproduct of industrial waste and organic compounds combined with a powerful electric charge. And this is the thing we found in the tunnels on Xenon in Space Quest 12, Space Quest 4. The resulting life form is a slow-moving mass of gelatinous acidic protoplasm with simple reflexes and a voracious appetite. This makes it ideally suited for dissolving locks and appearing in bad horror movies. Green slime will eat anything in its path, dissolving it quickly but not painlessly. Bizarrely, it has no such effect on glass, making it ultra-convenient to carry around bits of green slime in an ordinary jar. And indeed, it was marketed this way under the name Face Begone, Cork City. At one time, many eons ago, Grell were the primary inhabitants of Corona. Artifacts and ruins have revealed much about them. They were creatures of immense size, towering some 30 to 40 meters tall. They were extremely ugly and couldn't bear to look at one another, which is why their race died out entirely. They were hunter-gatherers, preferring hunting gatherers to gathering hunters. Coronian tentacular slime sucker, which lives deep in underground caverns of Corona, has never been seen by anybody who's lived to provide a complete description. All that's ever been seen are their slimy tentacles, which are tentacle-like and slimy, resembling tentacle-like slimy tentacles. Anything finding its way into these tentacles is first slimed, then devoured. This is an appropriate moment to note that tentacles comes from the root 10 tickles, since the Andromedan decapus, with its serpentine, flexible appendages, tickled its foes to death. That's just another fact to know and tell. Coronian killer mammal has an undeservedly fierce reputation due primarily to its name, or rather to what its name has become over the course of generations of sloppy pronunciation. Ordinarily known as the lonely and bewildered sandbill, the Coronian killer mammal is a gentle, slow-moving herbivorous insect that would rather squash itself flat than come into contact with any other life form. These tiny introverted creatures are native to the planet Omega Big Deal, the only planet with the distinction of having its entire civilization flunk phonics. This lack of linguistic agility is said to account for the distortion of the sandbill's name, although another theory has been put forth that the killer mammal appellation is merely due to centuries of sarcasm. The Coronian killer mammal eats dust mites, and lots of them. Coronians, the sentient civilization of Corona, consists of the Coronians, a secretive and shy race of scholarly old men. They devote their lives to the pursuit and dissemination of knowledge. Conversations with Coronians are liable to be dry, peppered with obscure and dull references to places and people you've never heard of, and full of self-congratulatory rhetoric. Most members of Mensa are Coronians. Most Coronians are vegans and prefer the local flora. However, some Coronians eat their own young, just so they can only say, "Oh yes, I've done that, we taste like chicken." The killer cave beaver was in Space Quest 2, and its eyesight is among the worst in the galaxy, matched only by the giant cataract bear of Pestilon and the blind plummeting mountain goat of Andromeda. Blind plummeting mountain goat, that's a good combination. Although it's herbivorous, it frequently accidentally kills other creatures because up close they all look like tree trunks. It's only after the beaver has chewed its way through the nearest sturdy limb that it discovers the limb is some creature's armorlet. Thus, the dams made by the killer cave beaver are quite disgusting. Its favorite food is clinging girlfriend ivy. Labion cave squid, more from Space Quest 2. Fish-like mammal which has not yet realized that it's a land dweller. It still tends to squirt ink, which just lies ineffectively in a puddle on the ground and gets under the spots of your boots. Also uses typical squid-like flexing motions to propel itself, a very inefficient mode of transportation when moving through rocky tunnels. So the Labion cave squid gets a lot of nasty cuts and scrapes as it tries to frog kick its way across the rough stone floor. This makes it more cranky than ever. It's also frightened by both humanoids and light, since it still thinks it's deep in the murky depths of the Labion swamps. Don't confuse it by approaching. will happily crush you rather than being forced to question its reality. Also eat you if given the opportunity.
No.
Labion root monster, direct descendant of the Venus buggerfly. Labion root monster is a carnivorous plant with roots both above and below ground. The underground roots absorb water and nutrients normally, but the soil of Labion is nitrogen poor, so the above-ground roots collect nitrogen by capturing and digesting small stupid animals, or larger, stupider ones. When disturbed, the roots wrap around the luckless creature and convey it to the central sac, wherein lie the digestive juices and spike-like cilia that reduce the creature to a pulp-like consistency. At this point, the root monster exudes nitrogen like a Clorox 2 bean bladder at the Gilroy 9 Garlic Festival. And finally, we have a Space Quest 5 reference. The root monster is best observed at a distance, or in the highly acclaimed vidcart series, The Trials of Grotesque Alien Animal Behavior by highly acclaimed naturalist Dr. David Attenborough. Labion Swamp Slurpee. Hideous, grotesque half-fish, half-reptile. Nobody's quite sure because nobody's seen one up close has ever lived to describe it. Witnesses are usually found slightly decapitated, or with a modest discount in the cranial region. We can only assume they eat everyone and everything. Labion Terror Beast is aptly named since it spends most of its life in terror. Although the Terror Beast could easily defeat a humanoid, it usually avoids conflict unless faced with a particularly wimpy opponent, like Roger. Most of its time is spent keeping to itself, avoiding public appearances and banquets. Its preferred diet is composed mainly of the roots of the star shockfish. Terror beasts are born with extremely powerful leg muscles, however one leg is shorter than the other, so the beast tends to spin in a tight circle as it zooms across the Labion landscape. This creates a whirlwind effect that can prove particularly hazardous to trailer parks. Highly intelligent creature, the beast enjoys figuring out small puzzles, and will often stop in the middle of a hunt to solve a matchstick puzzle, logic problem, or riddle. Curiously, the beast hates arcade sequences. Know the feeling.
That's
The latex babes are natives of the planet Estros, are usually nubile humanoid females, although the occasional wily, stringy male is not unheard of. Turn-ons include constructing the finest underwater craft in the galaxy, arc welding, and shopping. Turn-off are Estrosian sea slugs, plaque buildup above the gum line, and two-timing janitors. Favorite foods are eelwort sashimi and roasted dry-mouthed gourami. And we've seen these already.
Don't touch that.
The nose nugget nomads are lumpen creatures who toddle around the universe in a wood-paneled station wagon. With their sack-like children in tow, they go on sightseeing tours that last upwards of 30,000 years. During these tours, they take literally millions of slides, most of which show them waving high on every dinky little planet, asteroid, and intergalactic tourist trap in the Crap Nebula. During their hibernation phase, which lasts about 4,000 years, they have their film developed. When they waken, they watch their slides. Entire civilizations have risen and fallen during one of the Nose Nugget slideshows. They pride themselves on their gustatorial flexibility and eat whatever foods are native to the location they're visiting. On planets where the natives subsist mainly on nose nuggets, this presents the nose nuggets with a difficult situation in which they often find out having to eat themselves. Orats are aggressive carnivores who have been the bane of visitors to the planet Corona for hundreds of years. Hulking and heavily muscled, Orats walk on two powerful hind legs. They enjoy crushing other life forms with their massive forearms. They also enjoy basketball, and often combine the two by playing a quick game of one-on-one with a recent catch. Interestingly or not, the flesh of the Orat is highly prized for its flavor and buttery texture. It's found as a common ingredient in the cuisines of several different planets. As a result, there's a burgeoning black market in Orat poaching. For that reason, the Orat is considered an endangered species, but nobody seems to mind except for a few chefs. Pastulon monochrome boys. You won't find the monochrome boys in their native habitat. These foul-mouthed, belligerent beasts spend most of the time zipping around on hardly dramamines, bullying weaker life forms and tinkering with their hogs. Not their motorcycles, but their real hogs. Don't ask, you don't know. The monochrome boys are so named because of their unusual white and gray pigmentation. The blotchy blemishes are partly responsible for their sour demeanor. Do not make eye contact. Should they force a conversation, do not call them monochrome or boys. It's alright for them to call each other monochrome, but it's not okay for anyone else. The diet of the monochrome boys consists mainly of any other life form that has a light, crunchy exoskeleton. Phlebot pod snatchers, the only life form in other indigenous to Phlebot, other than the Phlebotinskis. Pod snatchers hang from purplish rock formations that dot the landscape. They attach themselves by means of a strong, solid muscle, and their tough, chitinous outer shell protects them from potential predators. At birth, the pod snatcher cannot focus on its prey. Fortunately, it has glands located near its tear duct that secrete a liquid glass that hardens and forms a lens over the eye, usually in about an hour. Imagine that, lenses in about an hour. The pod snatcher then looks down from its upside-down perch and rolls a sticky, extensible tongue that can pick up an enemy 250 times its own weight, snag a fly moving over 35 kph, or perform several dubious tricks designed to get it onto Quadrant 12's funniest home videos. Their favorite food is Phlebotinskis, but since there are no Phlebotinskis left on the planet, they mostly eat sand. And the occasional, Terminator robot. On Phlebot, the laws of natural selection are clearly illustrated, particularly in how they can sometimes go horribly awry and produce a poorly adapted race totally incapable of surviving in its native habitat. The creatures native to Phlebot are collectively called Phlebotinskis, or blats for short, like our friend Fester. They have 3 fingers, which end in suction cups, ideal for grasping small prey or souvenirs. They have oversized pupil for seeing in dim light, large yellow incisors for cutting through food, and long, narrow nostrils to protect against inhaling most foreign objects. Unfortunately, the planet of Phlebot, a greenish dust ball, has no small prey to grasp, is brilliantly lit throughout the day-night cycle, features deposits of naturally occurring pulpy food, which must be gummed extensively before being swallowed, and there's a replicator number, and has rock formations with cast-off long, narrow slivers of mica which are easily inhaled by the blats. These mica slivers can cause extensive lacerations of the sinus cavity. Thus, any blats who is fortunate enough to survive the atmosphere typically loses his teeth, goes blind, or starves quickly. In fact, there's only one known currently surviving blat who has moved off Phlebot to seek a more hospitable environment. Pinkins from Space Quest 2 are a race of many contrasts. They're so cute you just want to eat them up, but you can't because they're very tough and you can chew them for hours without making any headway. Which is alright because they taste horrible. They live on Labion and create elaborate warrens or dens. They also swim through the Labion swamps with ease since they use certain berries to repel the swamp slurpees that inhabit the marshes and bayous. However, the berries are ineffective against the monstrous killer cave beavers, who invade the dens and feast on the pinkins within. Cave beavers are not intelligent enough to figure out how tough and chewy the pinkins are, and often sample every pinkins in the den before realizing that none of them are tender enough to eat. They're herbivorous, so they will only eat creatures named herb. They will also eat the young shoots of the wandering atheist replicator number 1. Alright, and more throwbacks to previous games. We have Saurians. Humanoid race, treacherous, evil, but always eager to please. The Saurians make wonderful hosts, especially if you're their enemy. They pride themselves on their techniques of torture, mutilation, disfigurement, napkin folding, and selecting the right wine to go along with whatever enemy they're eating. They're also easily offended. Should you insinuate that they're doing less than their best to grind you into a fine red paste. They're omnivorous, preferring to eat old back issues of vomit. Space monkeys from Space Quest 5. Billions of years ago, the planet Sorania was devastated by a collision with an asteroid. All water evaporated from the ecosystem. Every day the inhabitants survived was a victory. There's my notepad here. Eventually all life perished, or so it was believed. Many of the life forms adapted by encapsulating themselves in cyst-like eggs. When these eggs are immersed in water, they hatch. One such life form was known as the brine monkey, a tiny water-breathing simian. Cyrano products mine the planets for its huge deposit of brine monkey eggs. While they were at it, they also mined and crusted brine apes, brine marsupials, and brine aardvarks. Cyrano has since marketed the monkey eggs under the trademark name Space Monkeys in comic books. And Cyrano is, I think, a reference to Cyrano Jones, the wandering trader from Star Trek episode Trouble with Tribbles. Space monkeys prefer space food sticks or tangy piquant brine bananas. Spiny alien things are a marvel of adaptive ability, with exoskeletons far too cumbersome to permit traditional reproductive techniques. Spiny alien things have learned to propagate by kissing. This is not a platonic kiss. It contains a fertilized egg which heads straight for the victim's stomach. Here it absorbs nutrients for days or weeks like a parasite, just like a parasite. When it senses the most dramatic moment possible, it bursts forth from the stomach in a spectacular display of special effects. This explosion naturally kills the host. But isn't it worth it for all the cool gore, especially if the host was merely an extra and not a highly paid guest star? And we met one of these in Vohal's asteroid in Space Quest 2. Or rather, we didn't meet that. That was one of that game's jerk moves, because that's a time-delayed death sentence, because it explodes right before you get to the escape pod. And then we have the Vulgars, which is the entry we're trying to read here. They're a peaceful race of brilliant and logical thinkers whose only real joy in life is to stride around the galaxy with superior attitudes and correct other people's grammar and spelling. They also enjoy designing outer space strategy simulation games, which makes them nearly insufferable as university academics, but not as well paid. Considering their placid and studious lifestyle, it's interesting to note that the Vulgars have developed an extremely practical martial arts technique called the Vulgar Nerve Pinch. This is a tactile oral maneuver in which the pincher pinches the bundle of nerve fibers at the base of the neck while whispering dialogue from either Tango and Cash or Hudson Hawk. The particular combination of stimuli results in a searing flash of pain and then unconsciousness, which can last for several hours. The technique is demonstrated in Hollow Joint Program 5551212. Okay. And that's it for this database. There's still 2 more databases to go. The ship's function database, which only has 2 entries. One of them is the Hollow Joint, which can recreate any environment for which a program exists. Start a program, enter the program number, and press enter. All materials in the Hollow Joint are made from Virtuplast, a virtual material that cannot exist outside of the Hollow Joint environment. Attempting to remove any Virtuplast items from the Hollow Joint environment will result in their immediate disintegration. So don't think you're going to go in there and conjure up something useful and leave and expect it to still be in your inventory. And the other thing is the food replicator. They're available in many of the ship's locations, and you just enter the number of the desired foodstuff. Menus are available in the seat pocket in front of you. If there's no seat pocket in front of you, try looking behind you. If there's no seat pocket behind you, just hail the waiter and request one. If there's no waiter, please wait and one will be with you shortly. Current medical issues. StarCon Subdirective recommends that humanoid life forms ingest no more than 10% of calories from fat. Therefore, Kung Pao Chicken has been deprogrammed from the replicator menu list. StarCon would like to congratulate Dr. Beverage Crusher on her self-administered balloon angioplasty. This procedure uses a tiny inflatable balloon to compress a blockage against the sides of a vessel. Self-administered congratulations are in order to Scott Murphy for finally figuring out how to firmly wedge his head between his own cheeks. We have a reference to the periodic table, and it refers us to the documentation we saw when we looked at the what's that stupid thing called? The
This is the data
quarter
you got.
homing beacon puzzle back on Polysorb. And that is the end of the ship's database. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.